Now, planned sales units. We are expecting 10,000 units in Jan, 12,000 units in Feb, 15,000 units in March, and 16,000 units in April. These numbers might have come from your historical trends. These numbers might have been given by your sales personnel, or you might have used some sophisticated forecasting software that helped you come up with these numbers. Whatever is the input, you will always be given the numbers of sales, and you need to move on from sales onwards. You see any software, Glein, Hawk, Wiley, Becker, sales budget invariably would be given. You would be required to draw up your production budget and the purchase budget, labor budget, and so on and so forth. So don't worry about the sales budget. What you need to remember is sales budget is the first budget that we draw up, especially the sales volume budget or the sales quantity budget that you see right here. Then what you can input later on is the sales price. Let's say we intend to keep our selling price same in Jan, Feb, and March. And let's say our planned selling price is $150 per unit. If this is so, then multiplying each of these quantities with $150 will give you your sales dollars budget. 1.5 million anticipated sales in Jan, Feb, March, and April. So don't worry, this would be given to you in almost every case. That's where you need to do your working. You need to draw up your production budget. And for production budget, the format that you need to learn is you need to start from the planned sales, budgeted sales, forecast sales, estimated sales, call it whatever. That's your starting point. That's your starting point. You need to have your input in sales, which will be given to you always. And here it is. We anticipate our sales to be 10, 12, 15, and 16 in the month Jan, Feb, March, and April respectively. This is the starting point. Let me plug it in. Now you do your magic. In every question, you will be given a clear-cut policy related to company's finished goods inventory. Like in this question here, in this example, it is the company's policy to hold 50% of the next month's sales as your closing stock. This is called the desired ending stock or the desired finished goods stock. So if this is the policy, then if I plan to sell 10,000 units in January, my closing stock in January should be 50% of the expected sales in Feb. So if 12,000 is the sales in Feb, my closing stock should be 50% of 12. Yes, 6,000. And what would be the closing stock in Feb? The closing stock in Feb, as per the company's policy, it has to be 50% of the March sale. March sale is expected to be 15,000 units, and 50% of this number is going to be 7,500. Yes. Similarly, for March closing stock, the March closing stock is going to be 50% of the April unit sales, 50% of 16,000, yes, 8,000. And what about April? Let's say for April, if you need it for April, you should be given sales for May. Absolutely. Let's say if 18,000 is the sales for May, then your ending stock in April will be 50% of 18,000, 9,000. Right? Now, ladies and gentlemen, listen to me very carefully. I need 10,000 units to sell in Jan, right? And I want 6,000 units to be available in the ending stock. So that means I should produce 16,000 units, apparently. That's what numbers tell me. I should produce 10,000 for selling. I should produce 6,000 so I can hold on to them as closing stock. I should produce 16. But do not forget, you will have some opening stock available. And can anyone tell me what's going to be the opening stock for Jan? Anybody? Right? So my opening stock in Jan will be the closing stock of December. And what is the closing stock of December? Last year, it's going to be 50% of 10,000. 5,000. So my opening stock will be 5,000. Here it is. Let's give it a different color with subtraction. Now it gives us a complete picture. 10,000 is what we want to sell. 6,000 is what I want to be in my closing stock. 16,000 is what I should produce. But if I already have 5,000 units from December, that means I should produce 10 plus 6 minus 5. I should produce 11,000 units. I should produce 11,000 units. The same goes for Feb. What is the opening stock of Feb? Opening stock of Feb is the closing stock of Jan. You see the 6,000 number here, right here. 6,000, which is the closing stock of Jan, is the opening stock of Feb. Similarly, the closing stock of Feb is the opening stock of March. And similarly, the closing stock of March is the opening stock of April. So this is how things are interrelated. And you do the same thing in February. If I want 12,000 for selling, I want 7,500 for closing stock, I need to produce 19,500. But if I already have 6,000 in the opening work in process, so 19,500 less 6, that means that's what I'm going to produce. 13,500. And same for the others also. So this is how you drop your production budget. Let me write it down in a more appropriate way. What you do, let me take you to a clean page, and that's where you can jot things down. You need to, let's say if you want to find the production budget for March, important point. If you want the production for March, you need to attach 1 month after March, that is April, and 1 month before March, that is Feb, right? That's the suggested format. You can solve any question you want using this method. So once you have these 3 months, and specifically we need the production for March, you write the planned sales or the budgeted sales, whatever the numbers are given. Then you add the desired closing stock to these numbers, and then deduct the opening stock. This closing stock of Feb will be the opening stock of March, and just do the computation and you can find what do you need to produce in March. Please take a snapshot of this format. I'm going to plug in the numbers and you will solve any question that comes your way involving sales. Using sales, you need to drop your production budget. So the number you find here is the production budget for March. I recommend this approach because when you use this approach, you are very less likely to make any mistakes. So please note it down, take a snapshot, and then use it to solve your questions. Okay, now here's a good question here. Superior Industries sales budget shows quarterly sales for the next year as follows. We have sales for quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is the sales given. And I told you sales would invariably be given to you on your exam, and you would be required to find production or the purchase budget. Company policy is to have a finished goods inventory at the end of each quarter equal to 20% of the next quarter sales. Period could be on monthly basis, it could be on quarterly basis. So whatever it is, be prepared to see what you need to do. Budgeted production for the second quarter. For the second quarter, I told you if it's a month or if it's a quarter, you need to attach the month after that or the quarter after that and the quarter before that. So quarter 3 after that, quarter 1 before that. It will help you do the right computation. It's a suggested method, has worked. We have solved hundreds of questions and that are available in your application. Lots and lots of questions which are conveniently missed by others. We have done it using the same methodology. And it will always get you the right answer if you apply the right technique. So we need to start from the planned sales, budgeted sales, call it whatever you want to. Our sales we need to find for the second quarter, remember. So sales for the first quarter is 10,000 units. For the second quarter, it's 8,000 units. And for the third quarter, it is 12,000. All right. What we do, we need to add the desired closing stock, which as per the policy should be 20% of the next month's sales. So the closing stock in quarter 1 is going to be 20% of 8,000. Closing stock in quarter 2 is going to be 20% of 12,000. That's going to be 2,400. Stop. Then what should be the opening stock in quarter 2? The closing stock of quarter 1 is the opening stock of quarter two. Simple, do this computation. Vakas, you should get your answer. 8,000 plus 2,400 less 1,600. 8,000 plus 2,400 less 1,600 should get you 8,800. That's C. 8,800 units. So that's what you need to produce. 8,800. Correct. All of you got it right. Next. Next question is question number 10. Even if you get a bigger question, it is always recommended you need to read the information carefully and then do the working. I am not going to read the question from start to end. I'm first going to read what is required. Production budget for April. That means I need the numbers for April, 1 month after that, 1 month before that, if the information allows. Let's see. Superflight expects April sales of its deluxe model airplane to be 402. This is the model name, C14, and the anticipated or budgeted or planned sale is 402,000 units. And the selling price for each unit is $11. Each C14, which is your finished goods, requires 3 purchased components. It requires A9, 1 unit is required, it requires B6, 2 units are required, it requires D28, 3 units are required. I'm just wasting your time. Since I need just production budget, I need 3 things. For production budget, I just need 3 things. Sales, desired closing stock of the finished goods, C14 is the item. C14 is your finished item. Sales, to this add the desired closing stock, deduct the opening stock, finished. Your work is done. Your work is done. There is no closing stock policy. Everything is given here. So we can solve it directly by taking your, let me write it down. So in order to find your production budget, you need to take in your sales figure, which is 402,000 units. To this, you add your desired closing stock, which we don't have to calculate closing stock. There's no closing stock policy. Just take the closing stock given right here. C14 is your final item. So you add the desired closing stock. And from this, you deduct your opening stock, which you already have. So 402 plus 10. For 12 less 12, it means your production budget is exact 400,000. That's your production for the coming month or April, whichever month is being. So otherwise, if no closing stock is given, in that case, I told you take the month you need to calculate the production for, 1 month after that and 1 month before that, and do the working as I did in the previous question. You will get your answer. So here we got B. B is the right option. So remember, Vakas, if you have some shortfall of your units in any month, you have to make up for the shortfall. You need to produce more units in your subsequent periods in order to overcome the shortfall. All right. So this is the overall idea of your production budget. It's just an overview. We will be doing more questions tomorrow, but let's attach the purchase budget with it. And before we do that, let me take you back. See, sales budget is the first budget which will always be given to you. Then you draw up your production budget by just following this approach. Take the planned sales. To this, add your desired closing stock, deduct opening stock. You can use this if these numbers are given. Otherwise, use the tabulated approach I told you a little while ago. Now, once you have the production budget, then you can simultaneously prepare 3 budgets. Direct material budget, how much material do we need to purchase? Direct labor budget, what is the required labor to produce these many units? And third one is the manufacturing overhead budget. So we are going to do this one today, and then the subsequent one as we proceed to the next topics tomorrow. So once we have sales, this will help us draw production budget, and from production we can draw up our direct material purchase budget. Remember, if you are required to calculate or draw up your production budget and you have been given sales, you cannot directly draw your production material purchase budget unless you first draw your production budget. You need this, then you can draw up your direct material purchase budget. You need production first, right? There are some questions in which just the sales is given and you are required to find the direct material purchase budget. In that case, you need to first draw up the production and then purchase. Otherwise, you will get seriously confused. Let's see a few questions that will explain the same idea. This is it. Jordan Autos has developed the following production plan. Luckily, production is already given. So from production, we can directly draw our purchase budget. And before we do that, let me show you, we were supposed to do this. How do we draw up the purchase budget? Here it is. From production, we can draw purchase budget. Similarly, we needed sales to draw up our production budget. And from production budget, we will draw up our purchase budget. How it's done, let me show you. We are supposed to make 11,000 units in Jan, Feb, March, and April. This is the production budget or the planned production in Jan, Feb, and March. This is the input for your direct material purchase budget. So you start from the same number, exact same numbers, 11, 13,500, 15,500, 17,000. See, just like, let me show you how it all works. We started with sales. You saw these numbers 10, 12, 15, and 16 as an input to your production budget. 10, 12, 15, and 16. So sales become input for your production. And similarly, production 11, 13,500, 15,500, 17, it is input for your direct material purchase budget. So they are linked. One thing leads to another. Okay. Now, every item we buy for these units costs us $5 per kg. And each unit you produce requires 2 kg of material. Like if you want to produce 11,000 units in January, each one will require 2 kg of material, which means how many kgs do we need? 22,000. You would require 22,000 kgs in February. 13,500 units are to be produced. Each unit requires 2 kg. So we will require 27,000 kgs for Feb. 15,500 times 2, 31,000. 17,000 times 2, 34,000. So these numbers, remember, this is not your answer. Many of the students, they just mix up the material requirement budget with the purchase budget wrong. This is the material needed for production. We need 22,000 kg for Jan, Feb, March, and April. This is what you call the material required for production. This is not what you're going to purchase. This is not what you're going to purchase. So just like we had a stock policy related to finished goods, we will also have a policy related to raw material. Like in this question, it says desired ending stock of raw material should be 10% of next month's requirement. So my closing stock here in January of raw material should be 10% of my material requirement in February. So 10% of 27,000 should be 2,700. Is it so? Let's see. Yes. My desired closing stock of raw material in Feb must be 10% of the material required in March. 10% of 31,000, 3,100. My closing stock in March of raw material should be 10% of the April material requirement. 34,000 times 10%, 3,400. And let's say if we are given the material requirement for May, 10% of this must be in the closing stock in April. Now listen, I need 22,000 units, 22,000 kgs for production in order to support the January units of production. And I want 2,700 as per my stock policy. So I should purchase 22 plus 2, that's 24,700 kgs of material as per the numbers. Material required for production and material required to fulfill the closing stock policy. 24,700. Do not forget, we will have some opening stock of raw material that needs to be deducted. And can anyone tell me what is going to be the closing stock of raw material in December? So our closing stock for December will be 10% of our material requirement in Jan. So 10%, 22,000 is going to be 2,200. So our closing stock for December is 2,200, which is the opening stock for Jan. Let's bring it out. Now listen, 22,000 kgs is what I need for production, right? 2,700 is what I need to fulfill the closing stock requirement. So I need to purchase 22,000 plus 2,700. So I need to purchase 24,700, but still I have 2,200 available in the opening stock. So it means if you need to deduct this. So you will purchase 22,500. That's what you're going to purchase, 22,500. Same goes for this. 2,700, which is the closing stock of January, will be the opening stock of February. 3,100, which is the closing stock of Feb, will be the opening stock of March. Same, 3,400 kgs, which is the closing stock of March, will be the opening stock of April. This is how it's linked. And then adding up all these will give you the material that we need to purchase. So you need to be very, very clear on what we are doing. Now listen, the blue line here, this shows you the material required for production. Sometimes, very rarely, you will be required to find out the material required. But in 99% cases, or almost all cases, you will be required to find out the direct material purchase budget. This is what we need for production. This is what we need to purchase. So you need to have a very clear distinction. Now, let's say if you're required to find out what is the direct material purchase budget in dollars, this is in kgs, 2,500 kgs. If you're required to find out in dollars, simply multiply the quantities with the rate. If the price is expected to be $5 in all these 4 months, multiply 22,500 with 5, you will get your dollar budget. And same is true for all these 3 months, Feb, March, and April. See, every number in the column is multiplied with 5 when you get your direct material purchase budget in dollars. And this is the direct material purchase budget in kg. So be very careful while you're reading the information, what exactly is required. Now we can do this question. Okay, now, Jordan Autos has developed the following production plan. These are the 4 months we are talking about. These are the units of production. Production budget is already given, so that makes somewhat easier for us. It says each unit contains 3 pounds of direct material, and the desired direct material ending inventory each month is 120% of the next month's production requirement, plus 500 pounds. Every month's closing stock must be 120% of the next month's production requirement, plus 500. The beginning inventory meets this requirement. Jordan has developed the following direct labor standard. We are not interested in labor. We are required to find out how much direct material should Jordan Auto purchase in March. See, this is the direct material purchase budget. Almost all the questions, I would say all the questions will require you to find the direct material purchase. Rarely you will be required to find the material needed for production. So what you will do, the same thing that you have done so far, you will write down the specific month we are interested in, March. Then 1 month after March, that is April. And 1 month before that, this will help you lay down your computations in a nice way, and then you can find out anything you want to. So you will start from planned production. Production in Feb is expected to be 8,000, in March 9,000, and in April 12,000. This is the planned production or the budgeted production. The next step, material required for production. Since each unit of finished product takes 3 pounds of raw material, that means you need 8,000 times 3. You need 24,000 pounds in Feb, 9,000 times 3, 27,000 pounds in March, and 12 times 3, you need 36,000 pounds in April. This is what you call the material required for production. Do not jump and click A. It will be wrong. It will be wrong. This is not your answer. Why? Because this is the material required for production, not what we need to purchase, right? So moving on, next step is to add the desired closing stock. This is important. The desired closing stock, as per the company's policy, the direct material ending inventory each month is 120% of the next month's production requirement plus 500 pounds. If this is so, my closing stock in Feb should be 120% of 27,000 pounds, which is 27,000 pounds multiplied by 1.2. And whatever the result I get, I need to add 500 to that. So it's going to be 13,900. What is going to be closing stock in March? It is going to be 120% of 36,000. And whatever the result comes, I need to add 500 to it as per the company's policy. So I should have 43,700 as a closing stock in March. Do nothing, no more working. Next, I need to deduct opening stock. Opening stock for March is the closing stock for Feb, 32,900. And just do the computation. Ahmad says 43,700. 27,000 plus 43,700, the closing stock, you're right, Ahmad, and then deduct 32,900, you get 37,800. 37,800, this is what you need to purchase. 37,800 pounds is the quantity you need to purchase. So remember, 27,000 was the material required for production, whereas 37,800 is what you need to purchase. There's a hell of difference between these two, and this difference you must remember. So we got our answer. It's D. Next one. The Jung Corporation budget calls for the following production. Quarter 1, 2, 3, 4 production budget is given. Each unit of product requires 3 pounds of direct material. The company's policy is to begin each quarter with an inventory of direct material equal to 30% of that month's direct material requirement. Your opening stock every month should be 30% of the material requirement in the same month. If this is so, budgeted direct material purchases for the third quarter. I told you, take the third quarter, attach quarter 4 with it and quarter 2 with it, and it'll help you find out some important numbers. So quarter 3 production is going to be 34,000 units. Quarter 4, 48,000. And it will take time in the beginning, but as you practice more and more, this method has worked. Every question production related can be done with very less chances of mistakes. So it will be a little difficult in the beginning, but with practice, you can master it. 38,000 units. This is the planned production or the production budget. Each unit requires 3 pounds of material. So multiplying each with 3 will give you what you call the material required for production, not the answer, material required or needed for production. So 38,000 times 3 gives you 114,000 pounds. 34,000 times 3 gives you 102,000, and 48,000 times 3 gives you 144. This is the material required for production. Now, the closing stock policy looks little different, but it is the same. Now, listen, what it says and what I say, they are the same. What it says and what I'm going to say, they are the same. The question says, the company's policy is to begin each quarter with an inventory of direct materials equal to 30% of that quarter's direct materials requirement. Your opening stock each month should be 30% of that month's material requirement. I say no. I will take it in a little different way. The closing stock every month should be 30% of the next month's requirement. I'll show you and I will prove why what I say and what this question says are the same. 1 or 2,000 30% is 30,600. 144 30%, it is 43,200. Right? Now, what is going to be the opening stock? Opening stock for the quarter 3 will be the closing stock of quarter 2, 30,600. We will get our answer, but we have to reconcile what I said to what the question is saying. So 102 plus 43,200 less 30,600 gives me 114,600, which perfectly matches with your option A, right? but I still need to reconcile. I said closing stock each month should be 30% of the next month's material requirement. That's what I say, and that's what I've solved it, the way I've solved it. The question says, on the other hand, the company's policy is to begin each quarter with an inventory of direct material equal to 30% of that quarter's direct material requirement. Take 30% of this number and you will get exactly what we have here. 30% of 34,000 is 34,000 times 30% is, just a minute. Okay, there's a little adjustment we need to make. Not 34,000, these are the finished units. 1 or 2,000, that is the material required for production in quarter 3. Take 30% of this, you will get up the same. So either you take 30% of the production in the same month, that will give the opening stock, or you simply take 30% of the next month's material requirement, you will get the same number. So in other words, now the conclusion that you can draw, if it is written, it is the company's policy to begin each quarter with an inventory of direct material equal to 30% of that quarter's direct materials requirement. If I change this statement with this statement, that each month's closing stock should be 30% of the next month's material requirement, they are the same. It's just that here you're talking about from opening stock perspective of the same production requirement, and here I'm taking the next period's requirements 30%. They are the same. You can do it in multiple times, forward, backward. You will get 114,600, and that is your right answer.